So we have a lot of conversations with customers and prospective customers around trying to get an understanding of whether and how will they know whether they're AI ready. And I think a lot of those conversations primarily talk about the technical. And I guess when we talk about AI in customer experience, one of the biggest misconceptions we see, or we still see, is that this is primarily a technology conversation. In reality, success is broader than that. It's about whether your organization is set up end to end to support and sustain it, essentially. So, what we've found is that there are a few core areas that consistently determine whether AI delivers value and whether it ends up amplifying existing challenges. Now, it here is that I don't think organizations are ever going to be 100% ready. Your contact centers are moving, changing, evolving over time. So it will impact where you're at with some of these levers. But I guess the point of this little session is just to kind of talk about what areas you should be focused on and what are some of the key things you should be thinking about in relation to this information. So the first area that we kind of want to talk to is around the customer journey and the insights. And at a foundational level, this is about having a clear understanding of your end-to-end customer journey. What are your key touch points and what is actually driving demand into your contact center? Because AI is only as effective as the problem it's trying to solve, essentially. So if you don't have visibility of why customers are contacting you, what are their root causes, what are their pain points, what are the moments that matter within that customer journey, then the AI just tends to optimize at a superficial level, essentially. So sure, it might make interactions faster, but it won't necessarily make them better. So what we often see is less mature environments is AI being deployed in a fragmented way or where they poorly understand experiences. That is where there is disconnect around what the AI is capable of doing and causing frustrating interactions with the customer. So the goal around this particular pillar is around identifying and solving the right problems in the right part of the journey. The second dimension here is specifically around knowledge management, and this one is super critical and is the one that is probably the most underestimated of most of these pillars. And that is because AI is fundamentally relies on a single trusted, accurate source of knowledge that it can draw on, and specifically for generative responses. So if your knowledge is inconsistent, if it's outdated, if it's fragmented in any way, AI and the responses that it will generate will reflect that. So you'll see inconsistent answers, you'll have lower confidence internally in the responses that you're getting, you're going to see higher escalation rates, and ultimately trust will drop like a stone. So on the flip side, where your knowledge is well structured, there's some really effective governance in place, and there's some processes around continuous maintenance, your AI becomes significantly more powerful, and not just for customers, but also for your agents as well. So what you're really looking to ask here is, do we have a reliable source of truth that can scale and is accurate? And does it offer some consistency in terms of the responses that we can provide across every interaction that is coming in? The third pillar I kind of want to focus on is around operational maturity. And this is about how well your processes, your workflows, your performance management are defined and embedded. So AI works best when processes are clearly understood and defined, they're measured, and they're continually improved, right? If your operations aren't well governed, or if your workflows are inconsistent, metrics aren't defined, or performance isn't really managed that well, then you're essentially laying AI on top on some really poor foundations. So you might see pockets of improvement, but it's difficult to scale or sustain that, let alone measure properly. So operational maturity allows you to track the impact of AI, optimize it over time, and integrate it into your overarching or broader service model. So the question here then becomes is, do we have the operational foundations to measure, govern, and continuously improve the performance of the AI? People and change is essentially the difference between AI working quite well versus AI working like an absolute disaster. And it's that difference between, hey, here's the theory of what we want to introduce into organization of AI. Here's the concept of AI versus here's what's actually happening on the ground with our frontline team. So AI cannot operate in isolation as it changes how your team works day to day. So your team needs to trust it. As leaders, you need to understand how to manage it and how to talk to it. And all levels within the organization need to be aligned in terms of what good looks like in an AI enabled environment, essentially. Without that alignment and without the necessary enablement for skills, knowledge, you're going to just have really low adoption rates. You're going to have inconsistent utilization, and you're just going to straight up miss value in the technology that is going to be delivered. So organizations that can actually invest in change management, effectively change management within all levels, whether that be training, communication, clear expectation setting, alignment with senior leaders, alignment with C-suite, they have much stronger outcomes because AI is embedded in the conversations and how you work day to day. So what you're asking yourself here as a leader is, are my people, or is the people and organization enabled sufficiently? Are we aligned? And is there sufficient support to adopt AI as part of what we do day to day? And then the final pillar that we're talking to is around the core platform. So specifically in our instance, we're talking about Zendesk here. So this is your technical foundation. This is all about your systems. This is about your integrations, your data structures, and your platform governance. AI needs a basis that is scalable, it needs to be well configured, and it needs to be well governed, right? As you have potentially heard from a lot of people, like where a lot of the AI products right now are not set and forget. You need to evolve that. So we're seeing that play out in a lot of organizations where roles are evolving. So where you may see a reduction in frontline headcount that is being transitioned to actually supporting AI as a product internally. So if your platform is overly complex, if it's poorly structured, or if it's lacking any real type of governance, AI will amplify those problems. If you see inconsistent performance or data quality challenges or limitations in how far you can actually push AI capabilities, if there is misalignment in any of that. So whereas if you have a strong platform, you have strong governance in relation to how you're managing your platform, if there are operational reliability, if you work well with your technology stakeholders to maintain your integrations and things like that, you will deliver better and more consistent outcomes. So what you are thinking of to yourself here as a leader is specifically around, do we have a platform foundation, whether that be Zendesk, whether that be potentially something else, but do we have a platform foundation that can actually support AI and will let us scale over time? So what that then looks like in terms of bringing all this together is what we would typically say is, like, when you are bringing all these dimensions together, the key message is going to be like, AI does not exist in isolation. It cannot be implemented in isolation. It sits on top of all these key pillars that we're talking to here. And if any one of these are weak in some extended point, AI will not fix it. AI will actually make it worse. It'll amplify it. So that's where we just want to reinforce that when organizations are looking at adopting AI, yes, you don't need to be perfect, but you need to also take a bit more of a holistic view of where your readiness is. Introducing the product will not fix your problem. It'll potentially exacerbate it if you're not focusing on every single one of these areas to kind of drive it. They don't all need to be at 100. You need to be working towards each one of these to help mature it. So the closing kind of point is, so asking, instead of necessarily asking, are we ready for AI? You want to ask the questions that are outlined here in each one of these pillars, because AI value is essentially going to be realized across all of these dimensions, not just specifically within the technology on its own.